The time is now. Let's get to it. Just believe. Just believe. Just believe.
In an ever-changing world, Life Changes Network presents the authentically entertaining voice of truth and inspiration. This is Life Changes with Filippo, with the always unforgettable, ever insightful conversations that captivate our fascination and insatiability for the inspiring moments of real-life journeys, as we, as one, strive for higher planes of existence and a better understanding of our true selves and the world in which we live. Always remembering, life changes. This is radio like you've never felt before. Good for all and all for good. And now your host, the MC, the master of change, Filippo Voltaggio.
Change the world. Change the world. You can do it. You can do it. Time is now. Time is now.
Talk about changing the world. This is an exciting show because it's interesting. You know, I faced it on Postbook. I posted on Facebook, something like that, that our guest, Kathleen Rosenblatt, almost single-handedly made it so that you and I, in America at least, can talk about things like acupuncture without looking really weird, or without people saying, wow, that's weird. Really? Needles in your body, whatever. You know, actually, when I was a kid, it was still considered pretty weird. But, you know, nowadays, it's actually pretty cool. And a lot of people have been healed and cured and, you know, by this. And so I was reflecting on the fact that, sure, we could talk about it now, but we wouldn't have been able to if people like her didn't try and break through the stereotypes and try and bring something like this into us, into our culture. And so I'm actually, I'm pretty proud of that. And I'm very proud of us having her on the show so we could talk about her journey there. And even better yet, or not better yet, but equally important, what she's done since, because she's now introducing a whole other thing, like taking that to a whole other level. She's, as I say, a pioneer acupuncturist, and she co-founded the first acupuncture clinic in the U.S. here at UCLA in Los Angeles, and also the first 5 acupuncture colleges in the USA. In Boston and California and elsewhere, I think even in Santa Barbara. So I think that's actually pretty cool. She's also an author. She wrote a book, Renée Damoul, or Dumal, it's French, The Life and Work of a Mystic Guide. She is particularly focused on the spiritual dimension of health, specializing in depression and panic disorders. She is also an author of 2 double CDs, Practical Cellular Meditation and Practical Veterans Stress Release for PTSD, based on circulating endorphins and turning on all the brains of the body. Yes, let's make a mental note because I definitely want to talk about that. She also studied with Carlos Castaneda. I mean, we can go on and on. So let's cut to a commercial real quick and we come back so we can have her on sooner than later. This is Filippo on Life Changes with Filippo.
True performance takes more than just working out. Every day we demand more from our body. But what does your body demand? Hunger is not your body's call for empty calories. It's your body asking for nutrients it's lacking. It's time to reward your body with Boku Superfood, made from the world's finest organic ingredients, vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and essential trace nutrients, all developed naturally and organically from nature's most nutrient-dense foods. Boku Superfood is quite possibly the best thing you can feed your body. So listen to your body. Reward it with pure, raw, beautiful food. Boku Superfood.
Clean water is not enough. Reverse osmosis, distilled water, and most bottled waters are devoid of naturally occurring minerals. They are acidic, unstructured, and hard to absorb and rob minerals from the body. IonWay's ionizers produce a super abundant supply of powerful antioxidants in each glass. Ionized water has a reduced molecular cluster size and a negative charge, hydrating you up to 6 times better. Water from an IonWay's ionizer will help you restore your body to its natural pH balance, boosting your vitality. And ionized water more effectively flushes acidic toxins from within your body. Drink the healthiest water available today. IonWay's water systems, their water changes everything. To learn more about IonWay's water systems and how you can own one today, visit our website at lifechangeswithfilippo.com and click on our sponsor page. You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with your host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can visit us online via Twitter and Facebook and at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.
This is Filippo, and actually, this is a really exciting time to be Filippo because it's been a few years now since I've been working with clients of my own in the life coaching field, and it's been amazing to watch how they've progressed in the world and how other people have learned from them. And it's interesting to see the exercises that I've given my clients over the past couple years, how they're using them in their life. And it's interesting that I gave an exercise recently that I don't always give. It just depends on the situation. And it made me reflect on my own life. And the exercise was this. A lot of people have a hard time finding what their purpose is in life, or what excites them, or for that matter, what really gets their goat. They just not always connected with what it is that they say or do or think about a lot, etc. So I gave recently a couple of my clients who I thought needed this exercise this. I said to them, go out and ask your family and your closest of friends what it is that when you speak with them over the phone or in person that you speak of most often. And I actually gave this at a workshop as well. And the whole class started laughing. And because and it's funny because I said, they'll tell you, they will. Now, I'm not saying they're always right, but they'll tell you something. And these people supposedly know you the best, or at least hear you the most often, right? So if it's not your family and friends, then somebody who listens to you the most, that's the purpose, to see what gets reflected back while you're being conscious of it after having asked the question. So what ends up, that's only part of the exercise. The other exercise is, what movies do you like to watch? What do you, what TV shows do you watch? What books do you read? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is a small part, but a big, it's one part, but it's big. It's a big part of this. And so it's interesting to get the clients getting these ahas, like, every one of them said, I talk about this. So my question to them afterwards is, you're saying you want to do this in life, but everybody says you talk about that. So which is it? Are you not connected with what you really want? Or are you really wanting something else? And so there's a discussion we can have about that. Maybe someday we'll have a show just on that exercise. It's that important. So I, this weekend, had one of those experiences where just after leaving a client on Friday and after dealing with this question, I went and had an experience in my personal life, which was reflecting back to me life changes, which was reflecting back to me making a difference in the world. The next morning, I had another one of these experiences, and it was one thing after another, like the whole weekend. It was a very busy weekend. I did a lot of things, but I'm just going to list just three. They were all like this, but here's a fine example. So on Saturday morning, for example, I participated for a few minutes in Dorothy Donahue's energetic alchemy workshop. And I watched, first of all, having known her so long and her worked with me and I with her, watched how she has changed and how she was changing the lives of her clients, of the people in her workshop. And it was an amazing process to be a part of. And I was so proud of that moment. That night, I was at a fashion show, actually, and my friend Eros Christos, who's a fashion designer, he was one of the featured designers. As a matter of fact, he won an award. Very proud of him. But not just for that and not just for his clothes, but because even in what he was doing as a fashion designer in that moment, though he does many other things, he was changing the world. He took that opportunity, although his clothes are already life-changing enough, he took that opportunity of that fashion show to help change the world a little more, to help change people's perspective a little more. And so instead of using regular models, he used every single one of his models were of American Indian descent. And the majority of them were ancestors of famous American Indians who had tried to make, and some of them had made an impact in our world. And I thought, wow, I am so proud of him. This is truly life-changing. And then another example, the next day, I was at a concert watching a friend of mine who was at one point several times on the brink of dying because of drug overdoses and abuses, etc. And after much work on his own, and of course we worked together, but I watched him take this performance that he did and truly shine in front of the whole audience. And he doesn't know this yet because we haven't had a chance to speak. But because I've been busy watching everybody else change everybody else's life. Well, but people in the audience said, I heard them as they were leaving, and a couple of people said to me, not knowing I even knew him, saying, wow, that was the best performance I've ever heard, or that really changed my life, or that gave me life. Here was a man who was on the brink of losing his, now giving life to his audience members. And for that matter, I should probably mention yet another one. Again, not the whole list, but then Sunday afternoon, I was asked to speak at an event where Sister Margaret was being honored, a nun in her, I think, 80s, who had changed the lives of so many people. And she was receiving an award and being honored, and I was speaking on for her at her event, and to see how many people turned up because their lives had been affected by her. Truly, my whole weekend was that of a life-changing weekend, and I'm so proud of that because I didn't expect anything different. I know I live and breathe this, but to had the question kind of turned on myself at the end of the day on Friday and watch it be mirrored and reflected back to me in such a beautiful way through all of these people really had an impact on me, and I couldn't wait to share. So speaking about impact, our guest tonight has had an impact on acupuncture and at one of the events, this is it. And at one of the events, somebody asked me, so what do you do? And I told them proudly about our show. And I said, we have people that have made a difference in the world, either have changed their own life for the better and now are out there changing other people's lives or are changing the world in a positive way somehow. And for example, our guest this Monday is Kathleen Rosenblatt. Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt, if you will, who has done this and has done that. And this person was absolutely fascinated, saying, never really thought of that. We take some things for granted. Like some of us, thankfully, get to take acupuncture for granted nowadays. So when we come back, let's talk about acupuncture and Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt's journey into her life passion and in how she has helped millions We'll be right back here on Life Changes with Filippo.
Are you like many people who want to make positive changes and improvements in your life and in the world around you? Do you ever feel like there's something holding you back from achieving your true potential? Join Stefan and Shaylee Shifidel with the Tad James Company, the world's largest NLP, coaching, timeline therapy, and hypnotherapy training institute. Get ready for a life-changing experience that will give you the tools to transform your life through positive change and will help you create the future you want now. Their training programs are designed to provide you with the revolutionary knowledge, skills, and techniques necessary to effectively create long-lasting and life-changing effects. Discover more about neurolinguistic programming and timeline therapy at www.nlpcoaching.com or call 888-440-4823. That's 888-440-4823. You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with our host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can hear tonight's show and all our past shows, which include luminaries such as David Wilcock, Mariel Hemingway, Georgios Tsoukalos, Marcy Shimoff, and Shadow Stevens on our archive page at our website at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.com. Remember, you can also connect with us via Twitter and Facebook, and now in our own community at lifechangesnetwork.com, where real people come together to share real life in real time. That's lifechangesnetwork.com.
It sure is, and this is Filippo, and our guest today is Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt, who, among other things, is a pioneer acupuncturist and co-founded the first acupuncture clinic in the U.S. here in Los Angeles at UCLA. She's also an author and so much more. But let's bring her on so we can learn more about her. Welcome, Kathleen, to the show.
Hello, Filippo. Nice to be here.
It's good to have you after all this time. We've been wanting you for a while. You're a busy person, and in your busyness, I got to see you this weekend at one of the events.
That's right. Fabulous fashion show.
Indeed. It was a lot of fun. So you heard what I said, and I just have to ask you, so what was it like when you were trying to tell people, really, let us stick needles in your body and it's all going to be better?
It was very, very humorous, because in those days we hadn't heard the word acupuncture either. So here we are studying something that turns out to be this bridge between the physical and the metaphysical that just is miracles. So I'm seeing miracles all the time and discovering that it's a science and an art. It's not just hocus pocus. There's really a very distinct, very specific system to acupuncture. And yet, it is true. People just thought we were nuts.
Yeah.
And yet it's funny, when we started this clinic at UCLA, leave it to Hollywood to look towards the unknown. We had all these actors and actresses. We had Katharine Hepburn, Randolph Scott, Rhonda Fleming. I had five-star General Omar Bradley, who had been a major general in World War II, and wow. Dorothea Duke, and a lot of people that were very interested to come to our clinic. We had Bill Walton. He needed two tables, a special table just for his legs and feet.
Wow.
Basketball player.
Wow. Well, I maybe they're just more open-minded, or they're more out there, or what is it, do you think?
Well, we live in a special city where people try things. They're usually the first ones to try things.
Okay.
So if you're going to try acupuncture, it's best to do it here. We went to Boston in 1974 and had a really fabulous clinic right on Kenmore Square, and it was way too early. It was so premature. Boston was the bastion of conventional medicine. They were not ready for us. We had lots of students with no money, no funds that wanted to come, but it was very premature. We started a school there that's still going today. It's called New England School, and when we started it wasn't the title, but that is the school that's still running.
That's exciting, Kathleen. You say, looking back, it was humorous, but it must have been, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Wasn't it frustrating, though?
Yes. Yes. But understandable. Because we live, up even now, 40 years later, we're still dealing with medicine that deals with these separate entities. You go to a different building for renal problems and a different building for cardiac problems and a different specialist, and they don't talk to each other, and they don't know what drugs the other doctor has got them on. So we're still living in this supposedly advanced system that's really, really backward because it's such a hodgepodge. They don't understand the interaction of the organs and how they feed each other in a very specific order. And there's just amazing ramifications of that and certain ways to tweak the whole electrical system so that you can get this flow to happen. And how each organ even has an effect on the mind and emotions.
So on some level, still frustrating.
Yeah, so it's still as frustrating now as it was then, even though many, many more people are trying acupuncture and having great results with acupuncture and herbs, and just that whole gestalt of looking at the body as a whole entity.
Differently. Now I have to say, I'm trying to think if I've ever thought of it this way. Now, I certainly feel very comfortable with acupuncture and have had acupuncture sessions many times, or at least a few times. But you take it to a couple other levels. One of the levels is for depression and anxiety, which I don't know if I've ever thought of it that way.
Mm-hmm. Well, even in the early years, I knew that acupuncture had an effect on what they were discovering was called endorphins. Only in the 70s and 80s were they really studying these natural opiates that the body produces. And in those days they thought they were only in the brain. Then they discovered that they're all throughout the body, particularly in the digestive system, which is exactly where we hold our emotions. We hold our emotions in the solar plexus and in the chest and in the heart. It's not just a metaphor when we talk about a broken heart. It's very much, that's where the anxiety and depression happens there. It's much more there than in the brain. So I knew that acupuncture was having an effect on endorphins, and there was even an acupuncture point in the ear, which was famous for doing that. But I just didn't really understand how far you could go. I would see that people would often have a very relaxing effect, but then I started mixing a few other things into the mix and really getting results.
Earlier you said acupuncture is very specific. I could, the word that came to my mind was complex. As I've seen diagrams, it's like, you don't just like close your eyes and say, okay, I think a needle's going here. It's like, you're really going specific. Well, specific is a good word too, but into a complex system. Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the most amazing things about acupuncture is this idea called, this theory called the 5 elements, which means the 5 major organs and their counterparts. So there's 2 organs in each of these 5 positions, and they go around in a circle and they feed each other in a very direct line, so that the stomach and pancreas feed the lungs and large intestine, and the lungs and large intestine feed the kidney bladder, which feeds the liver gallbladder, which feeds the heart, small intestine, and then it goes around again. Then that feeds the stomach. So an example of this and how beautifully it works is, say you have excess energy in the stomach, meaning heartburn, too much heat in the stomach. So you want to pull that down into the lungs, large intestine, 2 organs that are often deficient. The intestines are usually, often too cold and, kind of flabby, or the lungs are weak. So therefore you can pull this excess energy from the stomach, which is doing damage, which is making problems, and pull it down where it can be useful in the lungs, large intestine. So now you've killed 2 birds with 1 stone. You fixed the stomach, and now you've helped the lungs, large intestine. So that's an example of how you can manipulate the energy. Some people say, oh, I don't have enough energy, I'm so weak. Well, it's often that there's too much energy in one spot of the body where it's all jammed up, like in the head. People that have headaches, it's all jammed up in the neck and the head, and there's not enough energy, say, in the bladder, kidney. So we can manipulate that and move it around and make it so that it's evened out as we are when we were kids, and the energy was sort of generally evenly distributed. But as we get older, for reasons I'll go into later, it all gets jammed up. It's sort of like when you're spinning the washing machine and suddenly the heavy towels are too heavy in one spot and then it just turns off the machine. And that's what happens in the body.
And I'm thinking normally what people would do would take an antacid or take something for the headache, right?
Which drives it in deeper and makes more problems later and makes them look old and feel old.
Wow. Now, is acupressure similar?
Of course, it's just another way of manipulating, the similar points, and acupressure can be very effective, especially if people have a phobia about needles, which usually they get over really fast, because often I'll put in 6 needles, and they'll say to me, so when are you going to put the needles in? And I'll say, I just put them in. They don't feel anything. They don't even feel the sensation. So.
Yeah. No, I have to say I felt the sensation, but it was nothing like I thought. I thought it would be like when one gets an injection, like a shot of something, and it was not like that at all. It wasn't even like a prick. I don't even know how to explain it, but I felt it, but it wasn't painful, or it was just weird. Like, really? That's it?
Once in a while it can be painful, but about as painful as plucking your eyebrows. Now, you may never have plucked your eyebrows, but from half of the audience, they know what it feels like. And sometimes you'll pluck one hair and is nothing, in another spot you feel it. But it's like, nothing. Most of the time.
And yet it's doing a world of good.
Yes, right.
Yeah, I bet if people knew they could pluck their eye, it would, and then feel so much better. They would certainly turn on a dime.
But I've always had ways of treating without needles for those people that still have, I have a phobia, So I have some very interesting instruments that can do a lot for the body without needles.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know too. This is surprising me. You are so busy with the book and all that and the CDs, but you're actually still taking private clients on occasion?
Yes, I do. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. Well, actually, we're gonna go to a break here, but I then want to give people, first of all, the blog, which is brainbodybliss.com.
Mm-hmm.
So brain as in the brain, body as in the body, and bliss as in bliss.
As in happiness.
As in happiness, brainbodybliss.com. And so what other information do you want to give out for the private practice, which I didn't realize?
Well, I'm just about to change offices. I'm in a building in West LA on the corner of Wilshire and Federal. It's 11600 Wilshire, but we're just changing floors. So, in other words, if they contacted Brain Body Bliss, I could certainly let them know where in that building I'm going to be.
Okay, very good. Well, when we come back, I have to say that some people think that that acupuncture is a bit woo-woo, and of course we know there's a science and all kinds of stuff behind it. But aside from woo-woo, you've actually taken it also into kind of the metaphysics and the spirituality of it, as in your book. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that when we come back with Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt here on Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network.
Very good.
Listen to these words. He would not be beat by forces too fierce for man, woman, or beast. As the going got tougher, his courage increased. It's a little story with a big message, a message that speaks to children of all ages. It's about believing in yourself, overcoming obstacles, and never giving up. It's been called a masterpiece, one of the finest children's books ever written, and a true children's classic. Shadoe Stevens has been called Dr. Seuss for the 21st century. His big little book, The Big Galoot, is a story about bullying. Bullying has become an American epidemic, and The Big Galoot talks about it in a way that will touch the heart of a child of 4 and a grandfather of 104. It's the story of a little boy with size 42 hands, the biggest hands anyone has ever seen, and the kids laugh at him. Then the laughter turns mean. They mock him and trip him, and much worse. But throughout it all, Warren Galoot says, "I'm a Galoot, but I have good luck. You can't get me down. I never give up." A second grader named Chandler said, "I thought it was the best funny book I have seen in my life." And we agree. Whoopi Goldberg said, "This is a great story. Bravo, Shadow." The Big Galoot is available now as an ebook exclusively on Kindle Fire on Amazon for only $3.98. We strongly urge you to get it for your children, your children's children, or as a gift to yourself. Its message speaks to all of us. Have good luck and never give up. Go to Amazon.com and search for The Big Galoot by Shadow Stevens.
There are self-help seminars costing thousands of dollars guaranteeing miraculous transformations. There are compelling speakers and life-changing weekend experiences where you can walk on fire. They all deliver revelations that guarantee you'll come back for the more expensive revelations filled with even greater wonder next month on Fiji. We get addicted to positive, heartfelt, expensive theater. What we really need is a jumpstart, an awakening. Someone who can give us a reminder that everything we need lies within. Through inspiration and practical knowledge, Dorothy Donahue helps people get grounded and motivated, inspired and energized. It's not just words and affirmations and the power of intention. It's a mindset brought about by a tangible, transcendental experience, an audio-visual, physical, spiritual experience that helps us realize we transform ourselves. We get tools to become the conscious co-creators of lives of unlimited potential. Find out more. Go to DorothyDonahue.com.
You are listening to Life Changes with Filippo on the BBS Radio Network with your host, Filippo Voltaggio. You can visit us online via Twitter and Facebook and at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo.
This is Filippo, and our guest today here on Life Changes with Filippo is Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt. And as I mentioned before, she's a pioneer acupuncturist who co-founded the first acupuncture clinic in the U.S. She's also author of René Domal, thank you. They're correcting my French. The Life and Work of a Mystic Guide. Now, this is where I think we're headed right now. She is particularly focused on the spiritual dimension of health, specializing in depression and panic disorders, and also as the author of 2 double CDs, Particular Cellular Meditation is what one of them is called, or Practical Cellular Meditation, and the other one, Practical Veterans Stress Release, based on circulating endorphins and turning on all the brains of the body. Well, before we get into all the brains of the body, the first part kind of sounds a little bit more spiritually or metaphysically, right, Kathleen?
Well, it's all one. The body,
Touché.
The body is mostly a bag of bubbles, and that's what Einstein says. This isn't woo-woo. This is what the physics, what the physicists and the quantum physicists say about, even the table is mostly bubbles. So if the body is mostly bubbles of energy, then certainly if we can connect with those bubbles through our breath, that's when we're really getting on the level of where the processes are occurring and what's going on in the body. So in other words, that's where metaphysics meets physics. And so I'm hardly making a distinction anymore, because now they're discovering that the mind affects the body so much and the body affects the mind so much that, most people say, oh, I'm into mind and body, and I understand that idea, but they really have a different idea than I'm trying to get across, that it's not just the head and the body and that they should meet and start to talk to each other, but that the brains are throughout the whole body, that the whole body is one big brain. That's even more holistic than we thought.
With an emphasis on the whole, W-H-O-L-E.
Yes.
Okay, so, all right, well, actually, I was thinking I was ahead of you for a second when we were talking about the circulations and turning on all the brains of the body. So I was thinking that like every cell maybe was a brain, but now you're saying the body is one big brain.
Well, if you really work at it, to try to really get into it, then all of a sudden it feels as if you were one big brain. But it's made up of all these little cells, and each one of them has a little mini brain. And then when you connect them all, you start to feel like you're thinking and feeling throughout your whole body.
Okay, so now I'm drawing the analogy in my mind that each one of us is then connected to each other, and that makes up the whole universe.
Yes. Yeah,
Well, there it is.
We're all stuck with each other.
So everybody that gets acupuncture, it heals, as they heal themselves, they're healing everybody else.
I think so.
On
I
some
certainly find that to be true.
Okay, so tell us about these CDs.
Well, these CDs grew out of my, verbal rap that I was sort of developing over the years, and I found that I was getting such good results with even people that had serious suicidal tendencies, that they were brought to me, like, this woman is about to commit suicide, can you help her? And I was getting results. So then eventually I felt, well, maybe they need to hear my voice in between treatments. So I actually did the first one in French because I was going to France to speak at a 7-day 100th anniversary of this poet René Daumal, and I decided to bring a CD of relaxation CD. Well, then finally I got around to making it in English, and then I decided to make a special version for veterans, which is they're really identical, except that I try to address the military experience and talk about what was of value in the military experience, how they've developed focus and discipline. And it's kind of a sad thing that that's the only place left where there's any discipline taught. Unfortunately, it's about a discipline about learning how to kill, but it's still discipline. And so they get focus, they get, they get a lot of very unique talents and things. And so how can they absorb that? How can they adapt that to civilian life? How can they relieve themselves of such severe trauma that they have experienced? So there's just an additional material in the CDs for veterans, and I've been getting very, very good results with veterans and the general public.
And it's so necessary with the veterans, especially. So thank you for that. They can get this at brainbodybliss.com?
Yes. I used to have 2 different websites, and now I've can kind of put them all together in Brain Body Bliss.
Okay, so could you give us an example of what we might find if we were wanting to experience that?
Yes, very much so, because I feel that after having studied many forms of meditation, and meditation is wonderful in any form, but what I liked about what I came up with was that it was more based on the body. People just, they try to silence their mind and focus their mind, and that's all great and good, but it's really hard, because our mind just wants to wander. But when we ground it with the body and attach it to the body, it gives the mind something to do. In other words, instead of just saying, don't think about anything, that's impossible. But when you're focusing on your breath and just really sensing your breath and even blowing into your body to really blow out all the old griefs and grievances and resentments and disappointments that sort of clog up our center, so that our center chest becomes sort of like this television, this old soap opera that just keeps going around and around, and we keep going over our old stuff. And when you can blow that out, but you're not just dumping it, you're actually transforming all those old pains into a powerful, neutralized energy. It was negative, and now you transform it to become neutral, and then it becomes even positive. So you've just sort of cashed in your chips. You've turned all that suffering that you did, whether it was put on you or you suffered for other people or whatever reason, now that you get to harvest the power and the good effect of it, if you could ever say that was a good effect. So it's sort of like the fertilizer in the garden. What is fertilizer? Fertilizer is, manure. It's the garbage that we don't want, and yet it grows flowers. Or it can grow a methane transformer. We can run an engine with this old stuff if we can transform it to make it power. So that's one of the ideas in my CDs. And it's also just this idea of empowering, turning on all these little brains that have 100 receptor sites in each one of these 70 trillion brains for these endorphins, these opiates, these natural feel-good substances that we produce. And when you start pumping that stuff out, finally, wow. Because otherwise it used to be that you'd feel better if you had a piece of cake, or if you could watch a movie, or if you got new shoes, or if you had sex, or some outside thing. We're always looking for the outside impetus for some joy and happiness. And when you start producing your own feel-good chemicals without cannabis, without cigarettes, without alcohol, it's so exciting to think that I have produced this. I've controlled it and made it happen in my own body simply by connecting and by going inside and traveling through my body, so to speak. So that it's a very practical way. It's not like trying to silence the mind, but it's saying, hey, just go trip through your body and feel good and turn on those endorphins yourself and watch what happens. And people get better and better at it, and you get deeper and deeper, and all of a sudden you can do it instantaneously. If you can feel a change in your brain waves and change in your endorphins.
And it's not lying to yourself. It's
No,
really
it's very
changing
experiential.
perspective.
Yes, it's something that you feel. It's nothing to believe at all. I mean, I know what it's like to believe. I was raised, very religiously. I wanted to be a nun.
Okay.
I mean, but it was an experiential thing even then when I was a little kid. But now, it's nothing about belief. It's just feel it. You feel it in your body. You feel it in your sense of well-being. And if you don't feel it yet, that's only a measure of how thick and dense and disconnected your system is. So you might have a harder time if you're not feeling it rather quickly. That means that you've really got some unplugging to do. You've got to blast through these barriers between the mind and the body, because it should be a flow. But it's been suppressed for about 1,000 years or so. So don't take it don't take it personally.
Yes, as a matter of fact, you gave the analogy of how the particular CD helps veterans and taking war scenarios and finding what they've learned from them. Well, I'm thinking, the other CD that's for everybody else. Well, there are some war scenarios in real life when, like, you have a domineering mother or a bully of a brother or father or friend or something.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it is part of our system that we're raised in this hierarchical system so that everyone's beaten down. And we start beating each other, in our personal relationships, because this is how we've been raised. Everyone has had so much anxiety, even in the womb, hearing the parents arguing or something. There's just so much of this that we're already slightly injured. And then when you see some of the things that are going on the planet to converge on us right now to make everything so difficult, there's a lot of reasons to be really pissed off. So to be able to transform that energy and to take one's anger and one's frustration and be able to turn it into power and see miracles happen. Because after all, just one atom, when it's smashed, can make an atom bomb. So there's so much potential energy in our system that when we harvest it, when we get it moving, it's amazing what's possible.
Well, Kathleen, I've come up with a couple taglines for your CDs. How not to kick the cat or beat the kids. Get it out of your own system.
Right.
Or dissolve it.
Harness that energy. Harness that anger.
I like that better. And your reharness, there, see now you just said reharnessing the energy brings us back to the acupuncture, where you were saying that when one organ is hot, sometimes another one is cold, and instead of like trying to get rid of the hotness or whatever, you just move the hot into the cold and you balance it out.
That's exactly right. And even a simpler way of looking at it is that heat rises in a room, and in the same way, heat rises in the body. So often the top half of the body is way too hot. Headache, tight neck, chest congestion, heartburn. And then on the bottom half, we have, backache, varicose veins, poor circulation, cold feet, infertility, ED, all these cold symptoms. So most of the time, acupuncturists are pulling down the excess from the top down to the bottom. That wasn't there when you were a child. Everything was balanced out. But as I said, the heat distribution gets wacko, and suddenly the top is way too hot. So that's a common thing, the cold feet. Like often people, when they have a bad headache, their hands are cold. All this heat is in the head, or the feet are cold. So, and then I have this other instrument that I use in conjunction, either alone or with acupuncture. It's called PEMF, which stands for Pulsed Electromagnetic Field Stimulator. And it's an amazing thing because it regenerates cell tissue, and it cleans up the cell membrane, which is the brain of the cell. And because our cell membranes get caramelized with sugars and proteins, so that this is what causes us to age. Things can't get in and things can't get out. And so even 3 minutes with this machine gets the inflammatory fluids moving, for instance. So people notice, they they get rid of pain right away. But it does much more than that. It really helps to regenerate the cell tissue so that, it just behaves like a younger cell.
Well, Kathleen, I have 3 minutes tomorrow in my schedule, so I just might have to come find you. And I knew that you would have so much more to talk about. Of course, we could talk about acupuncture literally for days, if not years. There's just so much. But even still, you've taken it to a whole other level with including the metaphysics and the spirituality and the depression and all that stuff, and with the CDs that you've done. But there is one other aspect that I know that you've talked about that I'd like to also include when we come back, and we'll just have a few minutes. So real quickly, when we come back, I want to talk about sex. And so we'll leave it at that for now. So we'll be right back with Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt here on Life Changes with Filippo, where she's going to talk about sex when we come back.
Health for sex, sex for health.
Are you achieving your highest potential? Do you know what that looks like? Louise Ashby Life Coaching makes it a mission to bring balance and abundance to every area of your life, giving you the opportunity to do and be all that you've dreamed. Anything is possible if you just believe. Contact author and motivational speaker Louise Ashby for your complimentary session and see if her individualized style is for you. You can email Louise at louiseashby.org. That's LOUISEASHBY.org, or telephone 323-592-3181. That's Louise at louiseashby.org, or telephone 323-592-3181. Life Changes with Filippo is a premier radio show presented by Life Changes Network, which is a company whose team has dedicated their lives not only to positive change, but to helping others observe and embrace, honor, and even celebrate their own changes, thus enabling a more positive, inspired life and helping to create a more positive and inspired world. From everyday people to corporate giants, celebrities, and children, we are here to help and to serve. With heart and experience, we bring our message and positive intent into your home or corporate office, and even through appearances on your favorite shows. If you wish to learn more about Life Changes Life Coaching and a private consultation with one of us, corporate event appearances, or if you would like us to appear on your radio or TV shows, visit lifechangeswithfilippo.com and click on our representation page.
Well, this is Filippo with Dr. Kathleen Rosenblatt here on Life Changes with Filippo, and we've talked on so many subjects today, all fascinating as far as I'm concerned. And if you want to learn more about any of them, you can go to Dr. Kathleen's website and blog, brain Body Bliss, brainbodybliss.com. And there you can find out how you can have a private session with her, or you could learn about her books and buy them there, or her CDs, or you could also learn when she's going to be lecturing. And as a matter of fact, in the minutes we have remaining, I wanted to talk about one particular lecture that I know that she does at a lot of expos and all that, called Health for Sex, Sex for Health. And I'm wondering, Kathleen, how you're going to make this all tie in.
In how many minutes? I hate quick sex now. Come on. Well, it really flows very directly from what I've been saying already. That how can you expect one little part of the body to be very effective and bring you all your joys and dreams when it's disconnected from everything else? In other words, if you're walking around and you're not connected to all your cells and feeling the sensuality of your body, of your own body, let alone someone else's, throughout your whole system, then how can you expect to get very much out of it or to be very effective at it? It really, really needs to feel, this sense of connection already in your system. And when you're also, one thing I didn't talk about is how to connect with the sun and the planet, which are giving us amazing amounts. And this is very scientific. This isn't woo-woo. There's amazing magnetism coming at us from planet Earth. It's alive and it's vibrating, and the sun is blasting us. So this is what gives us so much energy that feeds us, so that we're not so needy and depending on very frail, always imperfect human love. So that's one of the major things. You've got to get your own batch, your own dose. So then you're not needy. So then you just feel good in your own body. And then, you start to radiate energy from someone that's already feeling very comfortable in their own body. And I have all kinds of ways of how to get comfortable in your own body, which is certainly to get your body balanced. So acupuncture is really good for that, for enhancing sexual energy, which is governed by the kidneys, the kidney bladder and the adrenals. That's the area that gets the weakest fastest. Remember, the heat rises, so that area gets cold, and so you need to build that up, especially if you're getting into your middle years. You have to sort of support that in various different ways. They're, very doable. But then also to just explore and realize that in case you're one of these people that feels, I don't need sex anymore. Honestly, sex is really health-giving. There's so many new realizations of how, sexually, how much health comes to us when we have satisfying, enriching sex that's, happening on all the levels that sex can happen on. And it's not, it's tantric, which means, that you're really a meeting of the mind and the souls, and you're circulating energy not only through your whole body, but with this other person's whole body. And that's, a marvelous thing. But even just having sex where you're really connected to your own body and then able to send out tentacles to the other person's body. So there's just so many things, it's very hard to say it in just a few minutes, but It's a very rich area. Well, and, of course, it's so demeaned in our culture. We either make fun of it or we're just so into it, but in this very external way, not a very integrative way, or we still feel embarrassed by it. I mean, it's just all these ramifications of our culture, and especially in America. We just, even though there's tons and tons of sex around us now, we're still kind of voyeuristic about it and childish, adolescent. And then, of course, this whole generation of people now that are more into cyber porn and can't even have sex with a normal person, a real live person.
Really?
Things couldn't be crazier in some areas than it is now. But I just, it's just, what can you say? It's beyond understanding.
Evidently, a lot you can say. So first of all, forgive me for trying to rush sex. Secondly, we could have done a whole show on this. It's just so important. And it's interesting. You made me think of something I've never thought of. Sometimes when I've had like an upset stomach or and I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody at a party or something like that. It's hard to have a conversation or to be focused on the conversation. And during those moments, I've thought of people who do not eat well. And Kathleen, I eat as well as I can and organic and this and that and, raw foods, whatever. But people who do not eat a healthy diet and who take antacids like what we were talking about, I'm thinking, I'm having a conversation with them. I'm wondering if they're even in this conversation or what they're thinking about, much less sex.
Yes, I know. It's very, very true. And there's so much new things that they've learned about sex, about qualities of the fluids that are involved, certain health qualities of them, and there's just so many things that we've learned just recently that I can't believe I didn't know my whole life. But there is a lot of material to share.
Wow. You know what? I'm fascinated by that. I think there's so much that we don't know about that, like you were saying as well. And it does beg the conversation, especially on Life Changes with Filippo. So thank you for at least broaching the subject with us here.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, we have 1 more minute left. Is there anything that you'd like to impart that you haven't, other than to remind people to go to brainbodybliss.com and connect with you in some way or your material?
Well, that's certainly important. And also, we didn't talk about addictions. I'd just like to say that it's so easy to redo the brain chemistry. That ear acupuncture is working on the ear because the ear is an outcropping of the brain. So there's ways to actually access the brain centers so that you can change, the dependence on certain substances and alcohol, cigarettes, and also just increasing our well-being, being able to get off some forms of depression and medications and things like that. There's so much that can be done.
Yeah, and I didn't know that either, so, or at least hadn't focused on it. So I can think of a few people that I'd like to share that with and share you and this show with. So thank you for that, and I look forward to seeing you soon, and we can continue the conversation in other ways.
I look forward to it, Filippo. This was fun.
All right, Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us, and
You're welcome.
all the best to you.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Well, this has been very special. We've talked about things that we've never talked about here on Life Changes with Filippo, and so I'm glad to have started these conversations. Look forward to more of them. In the meantime, I'm grateful to all of those who make this show possible, and to all of you for whom this show is for. We'll make no bones, it's for us too. We all need this. But I am reminding you, I am Filippo Voltaggio, and remind you that as your life changes, we're there for you. Ciao, everyone.
You have been listening to Life Changes with Filippo with the Master of Change, Filippo Voltaggio. Listen live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on the BBS Radio Network, and visit us online at lifechangeswithfilippo.com. That's Filippo, Filippo. Today's show has been made possible in part by our sponsors, Ionways Water Systems, Change Your Water, Change Your Life, and Love and Miracles with Dorothy Lee Donahue. To learn more about them, visit the sponsor page of our website. Once again, join us here next week as we consciously explore and embrace the only constant, life changes.
Now's the time.